So hi everyone, and my name is Breda O'Toole and I work with IDA Ireland, and I'm responsible for talent, transformation and innovation with the agency. And I'm so pleased to, on behalf of the Innovation Value Institute in Maynooth University, to be speaking with Edwina Fitzmaurice today. Edwina is the Chief Customer Success Officer and Chief Product Officer with EY. But long before she hit that role, let's find out about the woman behind the very important role she plays now and find out a little bit about her. And then maybe, Edwina, as our conversation progresses, you might be kind enough with some questions I ask you to share about some of the content of your work, which I think will be really interesting to the listeners. So maybe, if it's okay, you might just tell us a bit about yourself, where you came from and how you got to be sitting in, I think you're in the US at the moment, in New York. Now, I'm asking you for your life history. As you Thanks, Edwina.
Okay, well, hi, Breda. Great to be here and to talk with you today. So yeah, I'm actually sitting in New York City right now. I'm looking out the window and I can see the Empire State Building. Oh, wow. So I'm here in Hudson Yards in New York City. And I suppose, you know, for somebody who is obviously born and bred in Ireland, and I've worked in London and I've worked in New York, you kind of think, how do you find your way to places like this? So I suppose my story is I'm from Dublin, and you know, I went to Trinity, I did computer science at Trinity. And that was, you know, years ago, I suppose, when people thought, you know, that maybe wasn't a career, computing, you know, shouldn't I be an accountant, or shouldn't I be a lawyer or some doctor, you know, the kind of things that a civil servant that your parents work in the bank that your parents want you to do. But I wanted to do computers. I was very interested in technology and math, and I thought it was a very creative thing. So that's how I started there. And then I went to work for Irish Life as a programmer and an analyst. I ended up at IBM quite quickly, where I was leading different teams, international teams, working on pretty hard stuff. We were doing sort of back-end architecture and infrastructure work. And then I went to EY, actually at the time was Ernst & Young, and I joined the practice there as a consultant. I was working with a whole bunch of clients, including a lot of clients in financial services. And at the time, the IFSC was starting up. There was a company called J. Rothschild International, who was a client of EY, so I was doing work there, and they offered me the CIO's job. I was like 28 years old, and I took it with two hands. You can imagine I went straight onto the board with Jacob Rothschild there himself. And that was a fantastic opportunity for me, which I really did grasp with two hands. Now, that's it. I should have said I met my husband while I was at IBM, so I was married at that stage. And delighted to have this job, and we were having a great time as two young professionals kind of in Dublin. He was working for IBM and I was there. Over time, J. Rothschild International was taken over by Scottish Amicable, or not taken over, there was joint ventures and different work there, and eventually Prudential Europe. I went on to be the COO for Scottish Amicable, and Prudential Europe, I was the CEO for Prudential Europe, based out of the IFSC. So I went from being in technology to running the business operations, to running the actual business, which is a really interesting journey. I can tell you, you know, being the CEO of a company is very different to when the book stops there, even how you thought about running operations or technology. You know, you learn a lot around that. I then also was a non-exec director with a whole bunch of companies in the IFSC, because once you get those roles, and that's around the same time I got involved with the IVI, the Innovation Value Institute, which was being set up at that time at Maynooth. And was kind of involved in that from the very early days, because actually, I think I'm off by a bit. It was a little bit later. It was when EY was, I went back to EY. So I left Prudential. I had my first daughter and I was trying to have another baby. So I decided I wanted to give myself some time to do that. And I left the Prudential. I set up a couple of startups. I had a startup, an art gallery. I also did a technology startup. And I ended up back at EY. And, you know, as I said, around that time, then the Ivy was setting up and we got involved there as EY. I moved to London, really working in London, setting up practices for EY in London, the strategy practice for technology. And then in 2011, I moved to the US, where I basically became the head of our markets group globally. So I was on the global consulting leadership team, running all of our accounts and all of our markets and all of our sectors and solutions and everything that was client facing, sort of rolled up there. And then 2 years ago during the pandemic, I came to our client technology group to set up customer success, to really monetize our technology and build our new products. We spend about $1 billion a year on technology for our clients. So that's my current job. I should say I had another daughter along the way who's now in high school, and she's fantastic. And my eldest daughter's out working in the city as well. So it's been a great journey. And I guess that technology thread has really seen me through that. A combination of business and technology experience has been very helpful for my career anyway.
Yeah, and you had still time for the arts and still time to become a mother and do all those things. I don't know whether I'm getting tired now or getting jealous. I don't know which, but you're powerful to be able to have such an exciting career, I suppose. And do you know, one of the topics we're going to maybe look at in a bit more detail is around diversity. But could you talk to us a little bit about, in that wonderful journey you've had in a fairly tough, you know, technology is not an easy sector, and we deal with a lot of technology clients here in Ireland, so we have a fair amount of experience for them. And certainly IFS, International Financial Services, is no easy journey either. They're tough, hard clients and hard sectors to work in. Maybe you could kind of describe the journey from sort of a diversity perspective, if you don't mind, and what your observations would have been in, you know, coming through the Irish business world, if you like, and then moving to London and then on to the US. Have you seen huge differences positively for the makeup of the workforces in a lot of particularly in the technology IFS companies?
Yes, I think, look, I think obviously the world has changed a lot, and there's opportunities and equal opportunities available now. So in the tech business, there's still a predominance of, certainly men would be very predominant in the tech industry. It's still hard to get women in senior roles, although there's plenty of women, you know, out there. And so I think there are a lot of progressions. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of support. There's a lot of discussion about it, but we're definitely not there yet. I would say we are not there yet. There's still a gender pay gap. There's still not the same access to opportunities for women. And also for, you know, I would say diversity in general, like more broadly. You know, there's a huge, obviously, technology community in places like India and elsewhere. And so, you know, we look at things very carefully to make sure we have leaders in these places, not just, you know, in places like India, or we work in, you know, Latin America, we work in countries like that. So we want to make sure we don't just have sort of back office operation people there. We want to make sure we have leaders there, and so that we have a full spectrum of diversity. But we spend a great deal of time on this particular topic. So we have a lot of neurodiversity. We've hired a lot of people from a neurodiverse background. We obviously have the full spectrum, you know, you'd expect, from sexual orientation and religion, and all of those things are very, very welcome, certainly where we are. You know, recently I've been recruiting a team, and we call it the cognitive human enterprise. And what that's all about is bringing in, there's a lot of technology disrupting the world. There's a lot of companies, every company is becoming a technology company at some level. So what does that mean? And what does that mean to humanity? What does it mean to be a human being with so much disruption? We're all on our smartphones, the metaverse is coming. What does it mean? How do we hang on to our humanity? So we've been hiring artists and musicians, and we have an artist in residence program as well, where we're working with them to really understand the nature of being a human being, and how we think about building worlds or experiences that take into account the human at the number one thing. The human's at the center of our thinking. And so that's been just so informative for us.
And tell me, if you, sorry, Edwina, just because people will, I find it fascinating, so I know others will that will be listening to us. How did you kind of develop those initiatives and activities and approaches, if you like? And how did you kind of get people engaged with that human, I guess, if I might say, the cognitive human enterprise in EY that you, I believe, started or certainly initiated with your colleagues in there. And I find all that quite fascinating, because now, as the focus is more on, certainly in Ireland anyway, and across Europe, certainly, I know US has the issue as well, trying to generate a variety of talent and a wider talent pool that we need for all the jobs we have to fill. I think this is kind of an interesting way of looking at things. So go on, talk to us a little bit more about that, and how you think we can drive these things forward in our organisations.
Yeah, so think about what's happening in the world, the disruption that's happening, right? Obviously, there's a technology disruption coming with things like the metaverse, okay? A completely different experience that's going to go on with technology. But you also have, demographics going on, young people expecting to have a different way of living, a different way of working. They want to participate in economies. They want to think about sustainability. They want to make a difference. So that has to be taken into account. We are creating new worlds, and we need to think about, do we want a world for like perfect people and skinny avatars and everything that's perfect, or do we want, what kind of world are we creating here? So from a doing the right thing perspective, it's essential we include everybody in this. So we're working with somebody, a fantastic social media fashion person. She's wonderful, who's also got cerebral palsy. And so she walks on sticks, and she's what people would call disabled. She calls herself that, and we've been talking with her and working with her about what does it look like as we create new worlds and new technologies and solutions and services for people like her. And we're working with an artist who's blind. And, do you show up with these disabilities in these new worlds, or do you kind of not? Do you have these perfect people? And, there's a really strong sentiment that I believe in. You should show up as yourself. You should show up as yourself in all situations. And we have to create solutions and services and people and products and businesses and worlds and economies that are for all people.
And I don't want to, sorry again,
so in order to do that, you need to include them in your workforce. In order to do that, you have to include them in your workforce, or you don't hear their voice. They don't have a voice. So people like us, people like who are listening to this, who are in companies, how are you going to create services and solutions and products and worlds for everybody? What's that look like? And it's a much richer world. It's a much more exciting and interesting world. Everybody rises on a rising tide, and so it also makes enormous business sense if you think about it, right? You create products and services for everybody. You hire talent. Like, we hire a lot of different talent, neurodiverse talent, or very good skills, technology skills. You don't have to go to a 4-year college to be good at technology, right? There's all sorts of, we hire a lot of creative people to help us build amazing experiences, people from a drama background, people who are used to producing shows. Like, we're hiring all these people. Creative talent is where the action is, right? Artists and musicians are the people driving this change. So we're making sure that we have them on our teams.
But I suppose too, there's two things that strike me as you speak there. One is that you're trying to, am I right? I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, but you're trying to target a client base, which could be the whole world. How can you do that? How can you create services if the people that are going to receive those services aren't involved in the creation or the experience of the development of them? One. And two, it makes me think that the business that you're creating is very client focused, because you're looking at, as they say, look at it from the client backward and build. I just think that that's wonderful. I had an experience once. I worked in a museum in Manchester in North UK, and we were building temporary exhibitions, and we couldn't understand how the majority of people that were visiting the museum, and it was a paying museum, were all traditional white middle class people. So in our temporary exhibition, we decided we would open it up to a huge consultation, and we would bring people from ethnic minority groups, as it was then, the groups we were targeting, into the museum to look. And I remember I was responsible for a group of Indian women, and I was saying to them, look, would you women come in here? Oh, no, this wouldn't be a place we come to. And I said, well, what is it? What would make it more attractive for you? Color. So the museum was built on an old railway, so the colours were very grey and kind of, the red, the very traditional industrial colours. So we introduced a lot more colour into our temporary exhibitions, particularly because I couldn't do much about the building. It was a listed building. So I mean, that's just a quick example of what I kind of hear you saying, and some examples, if you had them, actually, of the diversity of the organisation you work in and how your leadership team drive that diversity for the benefit of the products and services that you deliver. Maybe a few words more on that, if you had that, just for tips. For
I mean, you mentioned about being customer centric. All successful companies need to be customer centric. I mean, I don't know what else to say. So that's why you kind of think it makes complete sense, right? It just, there's no other way to be if you're going to be successful, particularly because, you know, this whole idea of mass personalization is going on. Every experience is personal to the individual. So that's going to be increasingly important. So how we think about diversity here is, first of all, it's an imperative at EY. It's tone at the top is absolute. So it is comes straight from our chairman. Every leader here will talk about diversity and inclusion, diversity, equity and inclusion in every conversation. It's at every meeting. It's not something that's sort of over there. It's part of the complete fabric of what we do. So then we obviously have a whole range of programs in place around that. It's in every recruitment, it's in every promotion, it's in every training program. It's everywhere, and it's actually, it's such a powerful thing. It's not like you have to convince anybody. It's these most incredibly diverse global teams. We have people with every kind of sexual orientation. We have transgender people. We have, you know, people who are, as I said, on the, you know, have accessibility issues. We have blind people. We have neurodiverse people. Our business is going extremely well, and it can only, like, it is definitely a factor in that, and we're very grateful for our business going well, right? The economy is good, people are doing well, but we work really, really hard on it, and we hold the line. I mean, it's an absolute. There would be no truck given in EY for bad behavior or not having diverse teams. I mean, you will get in trouble for it, in fact, you know. So it's, and so you get great teams of people, so creative, so different, so informed, actually, and everybody is listened to. Now, I'm not saying EY is perfect. Okay, there's other organizations that do that too, and I'm sure we make our mistakes at different times doing different things, right? I'm not saying everything's perfect, but there's an absolute intent. There's tone at the top, tone at the bottom, everywhere. So I think that's essential that happens.
Thank you very much, Edwina. I think there's the intent and the drive from leadership is I hope resonates with people listening. I want to take you back to your own job, because I have to say, I thought my title, you know, would be very exciting. But when I looked at what you're doing, I thought I have to find out a little bit more about that. Tell me how your role emerged within EY and you know what you do.
Okay, so in our business, we build technology to support our clients, right? And we have 4 major business lines that we have, which is our audit business, our tax business, our consulting business, and our strategy and transactions, M&A business. So this is what we do with our clients around the world. We are about 400,000 people in 150 countries. And so there's a lot of activity going on. I build the technology, my team. You know, we get, as I said, about $1 billion a year to build technology to support those businesses, to help us do better audits, you know, help tax returns go faster, update the regulations, to do consulting work around supply chain or around finance or around marketing or around, you know, transforming businesses with technology. So I build products, software products that support that business. So that's the product piece. And then on the customer success piece so that's about, are we building the right products, the right software? And the second part is, are people using it? Or did we do it the right way? So the success part is, how are people using these products? Is it delivering what was expected in terms of value creation for them? What do they think about it? Is it something that they like? So it's all that kind of customer feedback and success. So I build things and then I test that they're working, and then we close the loop to make the products better. So that's my day job today.
And are you quite excited about it? I mean, what gets you up in the morning, you know, when you think, wow, I'm going into do something very exciting, and it's very diverse as well. So, you know, what excites you about it particularly?
What excites me about it is we get to, in a company like EY, we get to work with all the big companies. We work with governments, we work with NGOs. We're at Davos, we're at the UN. So we're trusted to have something to say about the world and what's happening in the world. And then we're asked to help fix big problems and work on big issues together. So all of our clients are those kind of companies, but actually also big and small. We work with a lot of startups. We have the Entrepreneur of the Year program. So we're kind of connected across the community. And so I feel like we have a platform to make a difference. Our vision mission is to build a better working world, which again is not just a tagline. It's something we really believe in. We say, how are we making a difference? Are we doing the right thing? Is this the sort of work we should be involved in? How do we make a difference here? So you feel like you're working on something important. Last week, I spent the week with a number of companies and MIT talking about sustainability and what we can do to build technologies to help with climate change, to help with the circular economy, to help relieve the issues on the supply chain at the moment that are going on. So it's all of that. We work with emerging market countries. There's a lot of unbanked people out there. There's a lot of people who have no access to banking. How do we help people have access to that new economy that's opening up? It's a lot around education and learning. We do a lot in healthcare. So I think, there's a story about the man who's sweeping the floor in NASA. He's the janitor, and they say, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm helping send somebody to the moon." We're in a chain here of people doing work to try and solve issues, create opportunities, make the world a better place. And I know that might sound cheesy, but I don't care because that's what I believe. And that's what I think we're doing. And I jump out of bed every day because there's so many interesting projects to work on and challenges to face and people to help. So that's what gets me up in the morning.
You continue being cheesy now, Edwina, for sure, because it seems to be working very well. But I can see how your experience, with the startups that you're involved in, with the IFSC here in Ireland, in Dublin, and of course with the IVI previously and so on, how your experience is coming to bear now in what you're doing. And yes, I mean, I can completely, from where I come from, very much appreciate that working with all those very varied clients and different activities and projects can be so exciting. And actually, just on that point, I hate bringing up COVID-19 because I just think now it's getting, well, I think it's getting a little bit old world, but not 100% sure on that one. But one thing I think listeners would be really interested to hear, particularly from everything you've just said now about the diversity of your workforce in EY, how you're managing to bring people back together again, if you're working a hybrid model or not, or how has all that worked for you? Because especially with the way you've described your workforce globally, how now have you, if you have indeed, brought them all back together again? If you would give us a few thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that everybody's looking at. So we offered everybody, in most countries it's fully flexible. You can come back or not. So it's up to you. You decide.
Wow.
And so, some people really want to come back to work and they want to be back in the office full time, and that's great. Some people want to be home all the time, and that's great too. What's been really interesting for me, particularly in the last few months, and maybe also just watching it here in New York, is we're definitely seeing a hybrid emerging where, Mondays and Fridays, people tend to like to work at home. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they like to be in the office. I mean, you can't get a seat in here on a Wednesday. It's impossible. Place is packed. And we have a big building here in New York City. Now, why is that? I think there's a few reasons. Certainly in urban centres where a lot of young people are, right? They're in the cities. They're living in generally small apartments. And the idea of being able to get out and have another place to go is really good. They want to socialise. They want to be out. So on. So there's a lot of wanting to be with each other again. And honestly, I think there's nothing like being with people. In-person meetings are better. There's no question about that for me. Brainstorming's better. Understanding relationships are better. Things go faster actually when you're together. So I think people are seeing that. But what has also been interesting talking to some of the younger professionals is having an office to go to is now seen as a benefit because some people are no longer offered the option to go in. And what they're seeing is when you're in the office, you get to see how things work. You're learning faster. You're getting experiences, better experiences. You're connecting with maybe with clients, with leaders, others, you're learning so much faster and better. And so they're starting to realize, wait a second, I'm not in the office. I'm missing out on something important here, right? The coffee conversations, the walking between meetings. And we all know that. That's how you learn. That's how you grow. That's how you can ask that question you were afraid to ask in the meeting you were afraid to ask, but outside the meeting you were saying, I was just wondering about that, right? You have all those opportunities. So we're seeing that our younger professionals are starting to realize this is actually important for the career, and it's a benefit, and it's enjoyable, and actually it's nice to be in the office, right? But then the office has to be a welcoming place where they can belong and they are comfortable and all those things as well, right? And you need to give them the flexibility that if they don't want to come in, there's options for that too. That's what we're saying.
Yeah, and I think I've seen that with some of our major clients here, and indeed ourselves in IDA. I'm just wondering on that, actually. I mean, the COVID-19 was a massive disruptor where we talk a lot about the hybrid working, but what sort of technology disruptions or disruptive technologies, I should say, have you seen in enterprise? You know, or are you having to change your approach to the technologies that you're developing as a result of what you've seen, as a result of all the challenges, in fact, in the world, you know, the vulnerability of the supply chain, and are you seeing major differences in the way you approach things now because of what's happened globally and what continues to happen, I should say?
I'll answer this a few ways. So obviously we're all used to this sort of 2D world right now, Teams and Zoom and all of those things. I mean, within a year that will all be available in 3D environment. You'll have a button to press and you will just go to this other place. Okay, so I think actually enterprise is going to lead the way in many ways of getting the 3D world moving from a business perspective, because we're just going to be taken there. It's going to be easy to get there. So that's coming. So we're seeing a lot of training and onboarding, collaboration spaces being built in the metaverse, right? A 3D world where it is, I mean, there's still some work to do on the headsets, and if you want to go into a fully immersed world, but you can do it through this web interface. You don't need a headset to experience the metaverse. So that's definitely a case there. There's also, I mean, if you think about robotics and artificial intelligence, there's a lot of things that we can do that don't need the same level of human interaction. So you think of healthcare, a lot of us are used to now getting, you know, our eye lasers done by a robot or our knee replacements done by robots. Yeah. And so that's that's okay. Then you got telehealth, you know, you go to the doctor through the screen. So work itself is changing. The idea of work and how work is done is changing. So you can have technology in the real world, you can have technology in a digital world, you can be in person with an actual doctor, you can be offline with a doctor, same with the teacher, same with the accountant, same with the whatever. So how work is done is changing with technology. And who does it? Artificial intelligence can do a lot of things too, can do a lot of the work without needing the people to come in. The people can come in at the more sophisticated end of it. Now you might say, well, that's a big threat to jobs and artificial intelligence is going to take over all our jobs. Well, I don't know about you, but the war for talent is getting even worse. I don't know if anybody's noticed this. The more we say technology is taking our jobs, it seems to me the harder we're all working, the longer the hours, and the less people, the more we're looking for human talent to help with all of this, right? Because I keep saying, oh, we'll all be out of a job, and guess what? We don't seem to be. Seem to be working harder. So I'm actually, I believe in humans. I mean, we are the most powerful, most creative, most flexible, adaptable, smart creation on this planet. We can talk about any kind of AI or computer. There's nothing like a human being. And there's millions and billions of us, which is good. So I think the constant creativity and reinvention is just coming. I don't know if I answered that question properly, Breda. I went off on a little tangent there. Anyway.
You might mention just on that there, yes, massive big war for talent. And I do remember the conversations, particularly in the services sector, where companies would say to us, oh, you know, we've call centers, but you got to digitize those. A lot of those, or you got a lot of transactional activities, you know, they can all go on online, and people are saying, oh my gosh, that's the end, we're going to lose all our jobs. Or do you remember the lean era? And now it's continuous improvement or whatever, you know, but it was all about, oh my gosh, if we lean that out, then that person will lose their job. And just like you, we're seeing Yeah, but those jobs have created other jobs, or other jobs have emerged, like your own role when you describe it to us, that, bring a difference to it. Could you talk a little bit from your experience now as a leader and as a manager of people directly? What should managers be really thinking about when they're trying to develop their talent? Now, we talk an awful about upskilling and reskilling. What's your view about that as people move on? And you have just talked to us about the metaverse and what you see coming down the road. And we talk here about digitalization and transformation. So what would you be kind of advising people and indeed managers to be conscious of when they're developing their people, or indeed when people are looking to try to develop their own skills?
Yes, I think we've shifted from thinking about we have all these resources and we have to kind of put them through these training. Everybody, there is some stuff like that. There's regulatory stuff and things that have to be done, and we do that. But every person is an individual with their own talent, their own capabilities, their own needs and desires and wants and motivations. And so we've moved to a model which we call it's yours to build. And so we create an environment of learning, of development, and we have this thing called the jungle gym, which is you can kind of navigate it this way, or go up this way, you can go this way, you can pick your learning, you can pick your experiences, and people are self-serving. So people are very good at they're interested in themselves and their own careers, and they know they have to participate in that. It's not, nobody hands things. You're not going to be handed the perfect job, but if you want the perfect job, you'll be given a path to get there, right? And then you have to participate. So it's a kind of a two-way model, right? To say participate, pick, make choices, decide who you are, and then we will give you all this capability. And it's everything from, we have in-house learning and development and experiences. We've got programs with places like Udemy and Coursera, which is all of these online training programs. We're very much into badges. We actually do free MBAs and kind of sustainability masters and all this. We have all of this learning that people can sign up to, and they can do it free if you're an EY employee. But we're leveraging the ecosystem, right? So we don't make all of this training ourselves. We work with universities. We work with Coursera, we work with training providers. So the ecosystem, it's all there. And this is something I've been talking about for a while, which is about abundance. I think leaders have to stop thinking with the scarcity mindset. I only have so much money. I only have so much talent. I only have so many buildings. I only have so much data. I only have such technology. Let's start with capital. There's tons of capital out there looking for somewhere to go, right? There's tons and tons of money looking for a home. Investors, private equity, money looking for somewhere to go. If you have a good idea, if you have a good product and you're willing to open to the ecosystem, you will be given money. There's talent. There's lots and lots of talent out there in other people's companies, in startups, in universities. Partner up, open up your company, let people in. Data is the same. I mean, you can buy, acquire, work with, collaborate to get data. So everything you need is available to you. You just have to shift from thinking, I've been successful by managing a company with scarce resources, to I can have anything. I need to have a great idea, a great customer that actually wants to buy that idea or be part of that idea, or somebody who's served by that idea, a citizen who's served by that idea. And the world will come to me. I can get anybody to collaborate. We did a survey of about 1,000 people recently, C-suite executives. About 400 of them were CEOs. And overnight, like 97% of them said they're going to open up the business to ecosystem partners, including their competition, to collaborate. And, in the last few, like just recently, we saw Google and Apple and Microsoft agree, you consider a really, competitors, agree to create a common mechanism for, signing on, so that we can all have one single sign-on. That's a huge collaboration across massive competitors to achieve a single goal. And so the idea of managing the enterprise as an ecosystem of talent and an ecosystem of capital and an ecosystem of technology, rather than there's only so much to go around. That's the key. And everybody is moving towards that sort of ecosystem approach.
I think that's such a really valid point. And I'm sure you must have read my notes because I did want to touch on, so I'm glad you did, on the ecosystem, because I think as it's you know, no person is an island. And we all, I think that collaboration, we see it now a lot here in Ireland with a lot of our Indigenous enterprises and our multinational enterprises collaborating together on a piece of research, because we've a lot of smart technology companies, particularly in the Indigenous space, that can really drive solutions for some of our larger enterprises. And it's wonderful to see. And then, of course, what you get is the learning back and forth between the different types of companies, which is just you know, it's invaluable. I don't think you could ever pay for that. But just on the ecosystem, I'd like to know your view on, do you think there's more that, if we take the innovation piece of that, and the innovation that can be developed through a really collaborative and strong ecosystem, do you think there's more that our third level institutes can be doing, or indeed institutes like the Innovation Value Institute that you sit on? You know, is there more that some of that part of the ecosystem could be doing to drive a kind of a culture or a mindset of innovation? Or do you think it really is everything you said earlier, a lot would be driven from enterprise? Do you think it's, or is it a two-way system?
I think it's an absolute two-way system. I mean, if anything, the role of universities and institutions like the Ivy is becoming more important. The idea of being a kind of a convener of the best thinkers in a place to get work done. You know, there's not that many places that can do that, right? There are, you know, as I said, people like Davos is a great convening place, right? But universities are being looked to create ecosystems. And, you know, if anything, I would say there's a battle going on, as I see across the US universities, to take the lead in being seen in that space: innovation, convening people, collaboration, producing products and services with, you know, industry partners, with governments, with think tanks, like, you know, R&D. So I think the role of universities is absolutely essential. I mean, we're very keen on, we work with a range of universities now. We always have, but in a much more intentional way now, about R&D and about this topic. It's about collaboration and creativity, and you know, pulling that together, as I say, convening people, communities. So you have access to the young people, but you also have access to just a much broader ecosystem. So I think that's where innovation will definitely happen.
And I think probably, would I be right in saying, or would you agree, that having access to young people and really opening their minds at an early stage of what the possibilities are and the opportunities beyond what you were told when you, or the expectation of you when you're younger. I think I was a nurse, a doctor, or a teacher, and that was it. But I mean, the possibilities are fantastic and endless if you only look at your career. So I just, you know, I wonder about the role there, where we really can bring on younger people and get them exposed to all the different opportunities there are for them in this world. Not to mind the country.
Absolutely right. Yeah, you're right, Brita. I mean, again, that's a two-way street. We can show them the opportunities in the world, and we can you know, let them see the scope and the breadth of what's available. And I suppose be encouraging. There's a lot of concern, a lot of financial, a lot of insecurity with young people. We've given them a world that they feel insecure in, and you know, they're right. We didn't hand over something particularly healthy, right, in terms of the planet, or in terms of the financial situation they find themselves in, excluded from a lot of, you know, wealth creation and opportunities and nuclear families and all the things that we grew up with. Is not available to them in the same way. So I think there's something about providing an environment where they can participate and fully in everything. It's important. By the same token, on the other side, we can learn a lot from them. They're ahead of us. They get this whole thing. The world that is being created, all this disruption is coming from them. So in fact, if we were a little more humble and actually listen to them and let them teach us, let them teach us what the new world looks like, because they're inventing it. And there's a huge upside in the mindset they have around community, around sharing, around equality, around income equality, sustainability. They have some very, very good principles, and we should learn from them, and we should listen more. You should
So
listen.
let me challenge you back then. What was the main thing that you would have heard from your own two daughters that maybe would have challenged you a little bit in that same vein as you just described?
Well, you know, my two daughters are they're both living here in New York City as well. So, and they're Irish. We, you know, born in Ireland, grew up in Ireland, went to school in Ireland, both of them. But they're here in the city, and they've grown up in this. They've had a lot of time here in the US, 10 years in the US as well. So they can kind of see both sides. You know, the European mindset and the US mindset.
Yeah.
So things that are, you know, they would talk a lot about are things like sustainability would be very big. Equality is very big for them. Things like, you know, I suppose the fluidity around gender is a big topic with them, and how they think about that's very important to them. Again, this idea of being inclusive of everybody is very important to them. They're also, you know, quite determined that the world, they have a right to play in the world. Young people have a right to play in the world. And this idea that they should be able to participate in it and not be just recipients of the worlds that they were given. They want to literally change the world. And I don't think they're unusual. I mean, I'm talking about my daughters, but this is you know, they're friends. We have a lot of young professionals here too in EY, and you know, I have a lot. I'm very supportive of that. Actually, I think they're right. I learn a lot I learn a lot. I really deliberately listen very carefully, and I watch and I look, and I try to be really encouraging of that too. They need to make the world that we all live in.
Yeah. So Edwina Fitzmaurice, it's been so great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. And I think you've left us with a lot of food for thought. Really appreciate it.
Lovely to talk to you too, Brenda. Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.